When you think of traveling in Spain, you might think of big busy cities or crazy party islands or, of course, resort towns with more English people than England. Well, we did a road trip across that region without going to any of those sorts of places, and this is what we saw. We started our trip in Spain by cat sitting in the south of Spain in a little town called Torrox. Pet sitting has just been such a wonderful way for us to travel more long term and more slowly because we look after people's animals while they're away for an extended period of time, and we get to live in the area for free. It kind of opens up another way of interacting with the environment and the neighbours. So that was really nice. After the long drive to Spain, to have a house and to look after cats was really nice. After that, we did go to a major city. We went to Granada because we heard that we simply could not miss out on Alhambra. It's just one of the Western world's best examples of Islamic architecture. So well preserved, so intricate, and it wasn't crazy busy, but like I said, we went in the winter, so I don't know how it is in the summer, but it wasn't like theme park busy. It was busy enough, but it wasn't overwhelming, and it was definitely worth a visit because just absolutely amazing architecture and history and culture just preserved so well. After that, I couldn't point out on the map where we went. We really went to the middle of nowhere because we heard about these free hot springs, which were meant to be like a van life paradise. This place had a different vibe because there were unmonitored free hot springs, and that is amazing when you live in a Ford Transit, a very small Ford Transit. As you can see here, you can see the kitchen right here. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and then Jan is working from home, sat on the bed in her home office. So we really have like a whole living space within camera shot. So we don't have a bathroom, and sometimes we don't shower for quite a long time. So to be in a place with free hot springs was just amazing. It wasn't just the fact that it was free and unmonitored and unregulated. The community was really made up of van life people. It really had like an old school hippie vibe. Everyone was walking around in barefoot. You didn't really see people on laptops or phones. People's dogs just wandering around and obviously getting lots of scraps from vans, including ours. I really don't think I've ever been to a more relaxed place. After that, we headed back south and travelled along the coast. We actually crossed over from Spain and then went into Portugal. And Portugal's a brand new country for me. I'd never been to Portugal, so I was really keen to absorb everything. So we travelled along the Algarve and went to the lighthouse at the end of the old world. So this was the corner of Europe, and it really felt like it. There's this peninsula that goes out into the middle of the ocean, and you just feel the vastness of nothingness around you. So I really understand how it felt like the end of the old world. We also met up with our friend Marta, who we know from the hostel that I worked at in Scotland. We learned how to surf, which is like bucket list material for me. I've always wanted to know how to surf. Oh, annoyingly, I don't have any footage of me surfing because we were surfing, so it was really hard, and we were also enjoying the moment, and no one was kind of stood on the side filming. We were all in the water. We had a lesson, a 2-hour lesson, and I found that really difficult, but the instructor said the conditions that we were learning in were really difficult. And then we went again on our own once we'd learned the basics, and I just had such a good time. I could not stop myself. I'm really glad I learned that skill during that trip, and I'm really keen to try it elsewhere, especially if we ever go to Australia or somewhere really famous for surfing. Then we headed to Lisbon. Yannicka was telling me about fado, which is a musical genre which Portugal is famous for. It's like traditional. We decided to experience it while we were there, and it was one of the most intense experiences of my life. So we sat and we listened to various fado singers, and it was all very beautiful. We were there for maybe 3 hours, and we asked for the bill from the lady who owned the restaurant, and she said, no, you can't leave. She would not let us leave the restaurant. And she says the finale of the fado night, the final singer of the night, is me, the owner of the restaurant. She would not let anyone leave. So then we stayed for another hour. I think it was over 4 hours. The owner finally came on, and she was so passionate. It was lovely to see. I kind of feel like she ran the restaurant so she had an audience to sing to. This was one of those occasions where I met someone and I thought, you really have your dream job. You really made it. You are doing exactly what you have been born to do. You are in the right place and you are smashing it. Then we travelled around some more rural parts of Portugal, and even though it's winter time, it's still pretty warm along even the west coast of Portugal, not necessarily just to the south. So the lack of showering was okay. We didn't stay on that many campsites because a lot of them are closed in the winter, but the wild water swimming in rural Portugal is just amazing. There's so many clean rivers and waterfalls, and even though the water is not particularly warm, because the air outside and the environment, I mean, during the day it was still hitting 20 degrees, so that's fine, even if the water's cold. So the lack of bathroom really didn't bother us too much, and the cafes there are very affordable. You can get an espresso for 50 cents, 50 euro cents. So we would often, just for a toilet break, just buy a coffee, and that was often cheaper than actually paying to go to the bathroom. After that, we then went to Porto, speaking of cafes, because the cafe culture in Porto was just amazing. I had the most amazing pastel de nata, the little custard tarts, which have had a huge hit in Western Europe. I feel like since they were introduced in the little bakery, they've been seen a lot more around Western Europe. But they are just another level in Portugal, especially in Porto. Just like the pastry's so fluffy, the egg is so fresh. It's just a whole different dish. I'm normally vegetarian, but I heard that the national dish, slow cooked kind of shredded pork, cooked in a hot soup, and then served in a fresh bread bun. And I tried it, and oh my god, it was really cheap. It was about €2 for this slow cooked pork bun, and it was just outstanding. Like, you could tell it had really cooked in this stew, all the herbs and the spices in every bite. I absolutely devoured it. So Porto, honestly, one of the best places I've ever been to for food, cakes, pastries, and the architecture, the environment that you're eating all these things in. Just amazing. A place completely steeped in history. Definitely worth spending some time there, going into the little alleyways, the little cafes. Porto absolutely stole my heart. Can recommend it 100%. And then it was time to go home. The quickest route from Portugal is to go up the west side, and this way you don't have to go through the Pyrenees. You don't need the winter tires. You don't have to go through the mountains or the tiny winding roads. The drive was much simpler, much more straightforward. So if you're looking at driving to Portugal or Spain and you want the easy way rather than the challenging but a lot more interesting way, you can go up the west coast, and it is just a straightforward drive through France that way. All in all, the whole trip was about 2 months. Obviously, it's such a shame now because of Brexit. I'm restricted with the time I can spend in Portugal and Spain, or just the Schengen area in general. So I then had to leave the EU for 90 days, but it's definitely a region that we will go back to and explore more of. Even just 2 months in Spain and Portugal felt like we were scraping the surface. It did not feel like enough time. Even though we had 2 months, there's just so much more in that area. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and do stay tuned for more travel vlog adventures as we travel even more countries in our van. You want to say goodbye on the vlog, even though you're working and funding our travels?
Goodbye vlog.
Goodbye vlog. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.